Pod.
Rugby pod.
Hello and welcome back to the Rugby Pod. I'm Andy Rowan, Big Jim and Goodey are with me as usual. We'll be looking back at all the Premiership action as well as everything that's been happening in the United Rugby Championship. Plus, we'll be joined by Leicester Tigers Fijian international Nemani Nadolo. So settle back, enjoy, and make sure you've subscribed on Spotify. How's your week been, lads?
Come on, Jim. Let's hear it. Let's hear about the moan. What we moan about this week, James?
Just jaded. Hire car companies, Bristol Airport, lots of travel, live show hangovers. Where should we start? Hit me. What do you want? Do you want to peel back to the midweek live show, which was absolutely amazing, but lived with us, as we know, not just me, Andy Rowe, with all of us and everyone who went. That has taken a while to eject itself out of the system. Nonetheless, very good. Thoroughly enjoyed myself. And like Becky said, probably slightly too much. And I couldn't argue. It was bloody unreal. But it did not set me up well for the weekend, is all I'm saying. Good live show, though, wasn't it?
I was in the doghouse on Thursday, I'm not going to lie. I thought I got home. I thought I was reasonably quiet. Yeah, I didn't really want to tell her what time I was going to be home, so I didn't really give her a time. So when I rocked in at 4 a.m, she ain't happy.
Yeah, it was one of them where the appetite was high. And as we know, Andrew, you're hungry most nights, but I was hungry. I was thirsty. I was in needing to move and dance, and I got a hell of a buzz. I love Flatiron Square. It's a great place to do a live show. Do not go on a Wednesday and do what we did if you want to be in good fettle on a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Just as in, take it easy. Drink responsibly is what I'm trying to say. So we had Big Nemani there. Although he got beat on a chop-off, and we can talk about that, my goodness me, can that man swallow a pint?
You've got a bit of a confession to make, haven't you, Andy Rowe, live on the pod this week?
Do I?
Yeah, and I just hope that Beck doesn't listen to the pod, and I know my missus doesn't. You brought your missus to the live show. I mean, who does that, James? He's trying to make us look bad, isn't he?
He started the trend.
Well, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing you guys bring your missus along.
Absolutely never going to happen. I ask her to come and she tells me to do one.
It was lovely to meet her. It was lovely to meet the extended family. Big shout out to Dom as well from New Zealand, who's over. I'd be honest, I enjoyed the company. It was good to branch out from what we know as the cat food eating, munching, weird fish Andy Rowe. It was good to see the wider connections that you have.
That was good. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Well, before we move on and get onto the Prem action, Eddie has released a book on leadership, and he's had a few interesting things to say in it, including that he sent Maro off to get acting lessons. What do you guys make of that?
I did say my opinions on Maro, not knowing that the listener of the podcast, Eddie Jones, was probably going to write the memoirs in which we have created over the past few years. Weird is what I'm trying to say. An element of it true in terms of what I've said about Maro, and he isn't a natural leader, but very weird that the head coach of England, his coach, has said that. Andrew, they're interesting comments, aren't they? Imagine that. Maro told you, you're talking one of the best players in the world, and he's writing a book about leadership and saying basically, mate, you can't lead, so you need to go and get some acting lessons because that'll help you lead. Talk about natural leaders, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I'll go back to some of your comments, Jim, and you contradicted yourself surprisingly. That obviously you never do on this podcast. But I remember initially you were saying Maro ain't a leader. He's a hell of a player. Exactly what Eddie Jones is basically saying. He's not a leader. He's an unbelievable player, but he's not going to captain England. He's not that captain material. And then you fast forward a couple of years and you're saying he should be British and Irish Lions captain because he was with Rock Nation and all this stuff. Sia Khaleesi, captain of South Africa. So you contradict yourself then. And now you're going backtracking and going, Eddie Jones, listen to me, listen to the podcast, and he's not a leader. So
did I say that? Yeah, I talked absolute dribble. But I said he should be captain because of what the two players stand for in terms of transcending the game of rugby and the commerciality around Maro.
So nothing to do with actual leadership and captaining on field, which is where you earn your stripes as a skipper.
But he is a leader, though, isn't he? To a degree. Do you know what I mean? He captained England under 20s. He's captained Saracens, the A-League. He's one of the best players of the team. He's in the leadership group. So it's not as if he's like not a leader. Like he is a leader. I'm saying in terms of like being captain of your country or being a Martin Johnson or being a Paul O'Connell, or Alan Jones. Being one of these guys as a leader, Maro doesn't fit that naturally. And that isn't because he doesn't want to be a leader or any of these reasons. I think he does. I genuinely think he does. But I think what Eddie sees in Maro is you've got a player transcending the game, like you mentioned around Marcus Smith, that he probably doesn't think fits in with what an old school rugby captain is. And maybe there's a part of me that's like that as well. So I'm split in that sense without contradicting myself, but I understand what Eddie's saying. My point being, I find it very weird that he's said that in a book in the lead up to Christmas to sell more books.
Yeah, so he's up there as the best, if not one of the top two best second rows in the world right now. So where else can you go as a person, as a player? And, people are naturally going, right, who's next England captain if it's not Owen Farrell, because Marcus Smith's on the scene now. Owen Farrell, does he get in the team? So people naturally go, well, you've got to have someone that's guaranteed to be in the team, Maro Itoje, and people kind of look at it. And maybe it's just Eddie Jones prodding him a little bit to say, hey, listen, you've got to a ridiculous height in terms of where you can get to as an individual player, but there's more that I can get out of you in terms of leadership and, leading other men around you, because it's not just, there's some players that follow me by action. And there's some players that need to inspire. There you go. And there's some players that need to inspire a team collectively.
You see where this is going, though, Andrew, don't you? You see, Eddie said that he's only going to coach England up until the World Cup. So That's obviously a couple of years until that happens. His legacy is going to be part of Maro Itoje's story in terms of, I can see him making Maro captain for the World Cup. And he says, I tell you what, I told you I'd provide England with Maro Itoje as captain, put him through the leadership course, didn't give it him too early, and almost sit back in his throne and be like, there you go, England, here's Maro Itoje. I've gifted you. Like, you could see that happening almost a mile off.
Well, Maro was in action over the weekend for Saracens, who had too much for a 14-man sail, didn't they?
Phil from McGuigan, I'm going to say I've watched it back 5 or 6 times. I was going to tweet it. Did you see it, Goodey?
I did, yeah. And this is the thing, before we get into it, watching Byron McGuigan over the last few years, he's the angriest man I've seen on the rugby field. Like, he goes around acting like he's the big hard man. And I've got no doubt he could absolutely kick my head in. But you watch him game after game, he's always trying to fight people. And it's not really fighting, it's this whole wrestling, tugging, look at me, I'm well hard, when you can't do anything. Until you do something. Yeah, until you do something. And your UFC, judo flip, call it what you will, over Nick Tompkins. And no one touches Nick Tompkins in your eyes, do they, James?
I feel for McGuigan, because I think that Tompkins, who I like very much, was a bit of a shithouse. Like, he's celebrated in his face. I thought Nick Tompkins had a great game. And obviously McGuigan's pissed off with himself, but he's obviously annoyed with some of the stuff that's going on off the ball in terms of the jeering and stuff like that. And there was a number of Saracens players that were doing it, which I don't really like. Well, it seems to be, yeah. It seems to be a little bit of that. And I'm happy to call it out. I don't really like it. And McGuigan's obviously pissed off. And what's happened is he's grabbed Nick Tompkins, been really physical with him. And the one that gets me, which I feel most harshest on, as he's got him and he's pinned him down, he's flipped him the first time, as they've stood back up, Nick Ezekwe's pushed McGuigan, right? And naturally, he's just kind of reacted and flipped Nick Tompkins into the side posts or whatever, into the side protection pads, and it's almost made like it looked doubly worse. And he's lost his head. You can't do it. There's no doubt about it. But it wasn't for nothing. It wasn't as if he's just thought, I tell you what, I'm going out here in a fucking blaze of glory. He's been wound up, like you just said. He's a hothead anyway, and it's cost his team. Like it has. Yeah. I mean, I thought Sale played really, really well, and they were in the game right up until to the end, really, to pick up something from it. But you can't do it now. But I just think there's an element of players need to be dealt with when they're tapping other players on the head. Look, I probably did it myself. Do you know what I mean? I was a little shit when I played. But I look at it now. Back then, you could do something about it. Do you know what I mean? You could throw an uppercut. Do you know what I mean? You could go into a ruck with 2 feet or 4 feet or whatever you want to go in. You could go in back then with 2 hands, 2 feet and a head. Now
and 2 knees.
And 2 knees at the same time. I mean, you look like Blanca off Street Fighter. You know, you get like just that somersault thing.
What about the game itself? What would you make of, outside of the red card, what do you make of both sides?
Saracens very, very good first half. They're second in the league now. And I thought they struggled to make top 4. But my goodness me, Alex Good, who hates being called Andy Good, and he gets that a lot. He's got a little bit of a dart. Have you seen him as well? He's comfortable.
I was proud of him, mate. I was proud of him.
Yeah, he's comfortable. But what a player, wherever he plays on the pitch. And guys like him, Lazowski, I think, has been huge for Saracens. What about that line that he hit as well? My goodness me, in the second half. But when you
Billy
actually
was
look
big.
at it, but Billy was massive. I think now, and I like Billy. How is he not in the England squad?
Oh, mate, come on.
I know.
There's no game coming up, Jim. You never know.
Give it 3 years. Give it 3 years. He'll be playing for Tonga.
And Sale came with obviously a plan that they carried hard, they carried well. The tackle rate, and I read a stat somewhere earlier around, I think there was 4 Saracens players that made 20 plus tackles in the game, which is a phenomenal amount. And Saracens were so good at the fundamentals defensively, barring up. They hardly contested the breakdown until there was a one-off runner. So they were just like making the hits, fanning out. There was no one in the breakdown. I thought Sale could have gone through the guts a few times to try and get some momentum. And what it boils down to is the line speed, the physicality, their kicking game, their kick receipt, those fundamentals around the game that the Saracens have based their game on for a few years were top notch. And Sale grafted hard, actually. Obviously, the Byron McGrigan red didn't help them. I thought Rafi Quirk came on the pod last week, had a brilliant performance at 9. The Saracens scrum, though, absolutely dispatched the Sale scrum at times. And it was the fundamentals of the game there that were effective. And Sale made a few errors from the pressure that Saracens were putting on them. Billy makes the break. I mean, the seed that Billy put, 20-metre pass over the top, doesn't break stride.
Off his left hand.
Yeah, an absolute touch of a pass. So, yeah, Saracens were good. What I'm not sure about, and you go back years now, Saracens started the Caterpillar Rucks, right? If you go back, do you remember that one? When Steve Borthwick was actually playing for Saracens, there was a Caterpillar Ruck about 10 metres long. That's how it started.
Unquote, Paul Gustard said that was my point of difference, was a long leg.
Okay, there you go. And that's how the Caterpillar Ruck started for the defensive team kicking. Now they've delved into the law book, haven't they? And they've pulled out this law where you can join the ruck where you're trying to charge a box kick down and then spin your arse around 90 degrees, make it look like you're offside, and then put pressure on the scrum half, which apparently is quite legal. I hope it gets taken out there because it just looked terrific.
I don't think it'll be legal much longer. It looked awful. It really did.
Jim, you would have been cheering on London Irish over the weekend against Quins, wouldn't you, mate?
Yes. No, I like Quins. I like the way they play rugby. But I'll be honest, hand on heart, very happy for London Irish and what they're turning into. And proper game at the weekend. And again, I'll reiterate the point which I've just said there briefly. Fair play London Irish in terms of the results they've had recently. To get that draw at Saracens, was it the start for them? We've known they're good. They've just not been getting the results. But that is a massive statement. They beat Exeter away as well, but that big win against Harlequin. And what more can I say is that I'm happy for them. I like the way that London Irish play rugby. They're a great team to watch. In terms of a derby match, in terms of teams in London, now the Wasps aren't there, and I don't want to be horrible. I don't even know if Wasps can compete at that level anymore.
What about you?
Oh no, I'm being horrible. But it's good for rugby in terms of like what we're seeing now, the quality of rugby, both in the URC, but seeing Harlequins get beat by London Irish is good for rugby, I think, because London Irish are a bloody good team with some good players. And their defence, I thought, was phenomenal at the end of the game as well. You know, Paddy Jackson's added, whether people like it or not, he's added another dimension to that team in terms of churning out performances after performances after performances in terms of attack and defence. You throw a bit of the Australia magic into there, and they're a proper team, well coached. Everyone looks like they love it. Of course they do. Great place to live, great stadium, great training facilities. And we're now starting to see a team where before we were talking about relegation, you know, London Irish were in that mix with your Worcesters, your Wasps and your Newcastles.
But Saracens got relegated for breaking the salary cap, Jim. So
there we go. Of course they are. And London Irish are breaking the salary cap and they're doing wonderful things. So it was a good, hand on heart, it was great to see them win at the weekend, just from a neutral standpoint.
Well, Saints beat Bristol at Ashton Gate. What's happened to the Bears this season, lads?
Oh, Jim, what have you done to them? You basically said they weren't going to be great this year, and they listened to you.
Well, hopefully they've not listened to me, because we love Bristol. So,
Yeah.
Semi is not there. He's injured. That's it. Not that they're a one-man team, but when you've got the greatest player on the planet in your team, you're effectively a one-man team. And I say that with the utmost respect to Bristol in terms of what they've built and the style of rugby that they want to play. Bristol are unbelievable when they get on the front foot, like, because of the players that they've got. You do wonder around the profile of that team in terms of how reliant they are on Charles Piutau. Sione Piutau obviously left; he was huge for them. And the one that I've just mentioned there is my Semi, is having him in the team. John Afoa being injured for a large part of the season.
Sinclair wasn't playing. They got hosed at scrum time weekend by Northampton, and they were in the fight towards the last sort of 10 minutes. But you mentioned some of the names missing, and I'll come out with a few names later in a different team with loads of players missing. But you take out some of your best players, and undoubtedly Carl Sinclair would make a massive difference at front row. I think Max Laheath is still in reverse from some of the scrums that he was involved in at the weekend. And I know he's playing tight head when normally I think he's a loose head, but my God, their scrum was on roller skates going backwards.
He's good at cooking, though.
Is he a good cook?
Apparently so.
And you've got to talk about Northampton. Dan Biggar comes back off international duty, straight in, Friday Night Lights down at Ashton
Loves
Gate.
it.
Absolutely loves it. And there's a player, right, who you're getting absolute value for. Goes away with Wales, always comes back and puts in a massive shift for Northampton. He's been a class signing for them. So, they're on the money. Tommy Freeman scored in the first half. He was outstanding. This is more about Saints for me than Bristol, because Bristol have got injuries, but Saints went down there and did an absolute job at a set piece, and then their attacking game was on point as well. So, Bristol's near the bottom of the league, aren't they? I think it's only Bath who've got less points than them in the league this year. So, some big questions.
Wasps wouldn't be far away from them with their Goodey. A home loss to Gloucester. What's happening?
Mate, why being horrible? We've got loads of injuries. There's like 17 players injured. Like Joe Launchbury, Paolo Adogwu, name a few more.
Here's a
There's
question,
Andrew.
There is loads of injuries. Why are there so many injuries at Wasps? And that's not a throwaway question. That's going based on the last few years. There's always loads of injuries at Wasps.
Yeah, do you know what? I know they've looked at it as to why. A lot of them are sort of impact injuries. So in a contact scenario, Joe Launchbury is one when he blows his knee out. Jack Willis is one when he blows his knee out. They're just like one-off contact injuries. So they have looked at it, and they've looked at exactly the way they train. Paolo Adogwu does his ACL. And it's, they have looked into it. But listen, first and foremost, I need to apologise to Gloucester fans. I said they're going to finish bottom of the league, and I was hosting the Andy Good tweet on Friday night, and I basically was asking all the lads, how many are Wasps winning by today? We do a first try scorer competition. I'm like, there's no chance Gloucester are scoring the first try. Johnny May gets the first try, absolutely steps to Munga Allen, who was playing touch for most of the game. Listen, Wasps, you can make the excuse they're missing loads of players, but the real thing is they missed loads of first up tackles. They weren't physical in defence. The driving maul, Gloucester have got a driving maul till the cowsheds them back. George Skivington loves, and all I'm thinking is Jim Hamilton in his heyday for the Leicester Tigers A team on a Monday night. That is what I was seeing. Gloucester, their line-out drive was phenomenal. Billy 12 Vance, he was phenomenal as well at inside centre. And it was a lot of errors by Wasps, but you've got to credit Gloucester. So apologies to all the Gloucester fans for saying you're going to finish bottom of the league. You're not. I meant your nearest and dearest rival was Bath. And also apologies to all the Wasps fans, because I've basically given Gloucester their team talk before the game, saying, "Oh, they're going to finish bottom of the league," and they come and pull our pants down.
Were there signs of improvement from Bath at home in their loss to Exeter?
Yeah, there was. Defensively, there was. Yeah, 100%. Underhill was brilliant again, and they pushed Exeter hard. Exeter aren't playing anywhere near their potential, but they just relied on a bit of power towards the end from Sam Simmons. Of course, he was going to score the winner. The thing for me is, and I hate to say this, I watched Cipriani's attempt at a tackle when Sam Simmons picks off the base.
And this is coming from Andrew Good.
This is coming from one of the worst. I am one of the worst defensive tens to ever have played the game.
Humbly, and this is coming from Andrew Good. And I'm not laughing for that sake. I'm laughing the fact that, like, what are you meant to do against Sam Simmons? It's just one of them is like,
at least try and tackle him.
Yeah, I just feel like, just as you dive into the floor, just scream mercy. or help, or as
Yeah.
in your man something. But I think that just shows the mindset of where, unfortunately, Cipriani is and
Yeah.
how motivated he is in a team that's bottom of the league.
Yeah, but a lot of their boys did seem massively motivated. They were physical. They dominated large parts of the first half. And the thing that they've done this review over the last few weeks, haven't they, Bath? They got Ed Griffiths in either to try and circumnavigate the salary cap or something, or do a review or whatever. And what they come out with is we've conceded the most tries more than anyone else in the Premiership, so we need a defence coach. I mean, how much does that cost you? Surely it's common sense, isn't it?
But it's who they're going to bring in as defence coach and who Edward Griffiths can bring in. That might be the big thing.
I'll tell you now, Ed Griffiths won't have many friends around the game of rugby. I know that for a fact.
I don't know. I know we disagree on this. I think Edward Griffiths, and again, there's people. I mean, you talk about polarised, and you talk about a polarising person in terms of if you've worked with him and for him, from a playing coaching point of view to externally outside of that. I think he's the man to turn around that club. Watch this space, is all I'm saying.
Yeah, I can't see how he's working with Stuart Hooper. He wants in there. He wants to be CEO of there. He's, his reputation around the game, of the way he's treated people and the way he's done things. The whole Saracens salary cap scandal was based around what he did. I know he's lost a huge amount of respect from players, from agents, from around the game. So it'll be interesting to see what he comes up with or what's happened. But there doesn't seem to be some aligning of opinions around what Stuart Hooper wants as DOR, and I don't think he wanted Ed Griffiths in there to do a review, because some of the things that Hoops is saying is all around him as a DOR and what he's doing, as opposed to being told what to do by Ed Griffiths. So we'll see.
Well, while everyone else was scrapping it out at the weekend, the league leaders Leicester were having a well-earned break as it was their bye week, and we can have a chat with their Fijian winger Nemani Nadolo now. How's the health, mate?
Yeah, good, mate. Pretty good. Good to have the rest. I probably had a few more weeks off than some of the other boys, but well deserved. And just keen to get back involved,
Nemani, where was the fair on Thursday? Let's get it out of the way. How were you on Thursday morning after the live show?
I can tell you what. So the live show was great. It was awesome, and I think I probably had a bit too many beers. Got home 3. And then had to do the family day. So we had to walk around London. Oh, my God.
Talk us through. It's been an enjoyable season. So what I'm trying to say, much earned, well-deserved, top of the league. You can have a blowout in London. Did you feel that you could have a blowout? I know Freddie Burns, friend of the show, he's been in Nashville tended to see. I don't know if anyone follows his Instagram. Michael, he's found a wife.
He's fell in love. He's told me he's fell in love. Yeah.
With a lady who wears boots. I thought there was knee-high boots, and then apparently there's hip-high boots. Apparently that you can get, but he's fell in love and he's found a wife. Well-deserved break. Yeah,
100. Yeah, for sure. I think I don't really. I know this might sound cliche, but like we don't really talk about the wins down at HQ at Leicester, and I think it's once you get away from the bubble, you realize how much work you've done and how much effort you've put in, those extras and stuff. So it was a bit weird because usually at this time of the year I'd probably be away with Fiji. So to not go away and actually just rest the body, it was pretty cool. It was almost like as if it was like that you're not training as much. You're still doing some running here and there, but like you almost felt guilty. Because you're just like not playing. I hadn't played, and we obviously had the Premiership Cup. Is that right?
Yeah, the Cup. Yeah,
right. Yeah. So, but and like I said, obviously been busy with the family. Didn't really have time to get away and have a few drinks. Had a little social not long ago, but just to get out of the rugby bubble and get down to London, where it was good to have a beer. It was well earned. You come back, started training today, obviously get ready for Quins. And I know I probably didn't eat as good, but I still trained hard. But I think the mindset of it all was pretty, I'm probably reset, recharge, and I just can't wait to rip in. It'll be pretty cool.
Jeez, mate, you're a better man than me. When I had a week off, there was no thought of training whatsoever. I know you can't probably imagine that, but you're still training in your week off, which is amazing. I'll tip the slipper to you, mate.
But it, and just in saying that, when you've got, your defense coach, doing extraordinary things, outside of rugby. And then you've also got another, a staff member trainer, Will Finley, who's doing marathons. It actually makes you like want to work hard. I don't know if that, I was just saying that to one of the boys. Like we came in training and like these guys are running, Kevin Sinfield obviously did what he did for a great charity, and Will Finley, who's doing it for Tommy Young. So, when you got guys like that who are not even involved, amongst the boys, it makes you want to sort of work hard. So you kind of have a sense of guilt. So, I know I'm blabbering on about it, but if I had my way, me, I probably wouldn't be training as much. But
no, nice. One of the things I did see today, they're down at the training ground, Lamborghini, new partner for Leicester Tigers. Who's got the Lambo? Who's got the freebie? There's got to be one floating around. Who's the big time dog that has taken the free Lamborghini?
I'm not sure. I would say Freddie's been in there. Freddie's, he was the first to follow him, and they followed him back, and he's been talking about Lambos. So I'd say, he'd be trying to pull some strings there. But I don't know, you'd think one of those things, Freddie Stewart maybe. He'd have to be young and I guess playing for England, I guess.
I don't know if he'll fit in there.
Yeah, Freddie Burns did just say to me, I messaged him today about it. He said, I'm just keeping it warm for when Andre Pollard arrives. But there we go.
I've heard another rumour about a fly half going to Leicester.
Go on, James.
Go on.
A shark. I can only give you a hint. A shark.
A shark.
A shark. A South African shark or a sail shark?
Sail shark.
No, a shark. Just think, Andy Rowe, go on. Anything? It's a hint. It's a shark. What do sharks have?
Teeth.
Fins. Finn Russell. Finn Russell. There we
go.
No chance.
All right. I'm telling you now. Now. This guy in the sauna today, David Lloyd, he was about 95, said a good source mentioned Finn Russell to Leicester. But anyway,
there's the Lambo
Freddie
link.
Burns. Well,
there's the Lambo link.
See what I've done? I'm just joining everything together. So
piecing together, James.
I hate rumours, though. I hate rumours.
Yeah.
But it'd be unbelievable if he went there. And Nemani, you've touched on it. Let's talk about the hero that is Kevin Sinfield. I spoke to my mate Deeks today. He said he's got a body fat of 3%.
Yeah.
He's an absolute warrior. I mean, you look at what he's done since he's been there in terms of the defence at Leicester and the fact that you're top of the league. But what's he like as a bloke? I think everyone, because he's not on social media, not that you can gauge a bloke on what he's like on social media, but do you know what I mean? He's quite a quiet guy. What's he like?
No, mate, generally, he's a genuinely good bloke. Like he's, he's never the one to sort of, talk as much. Like when he walks into a room, you sort of everyone goes quiet when he talks, and he doesn't say much. And that's, that's the thing about like good, legends like himself, who's done a lot in rugby league. I've been watching league since I was a kid, and every time we think of Great Britain and England, you think of him. But mate, he's he's got time for you, and he'll take his shirt off for you. And I think what he did over the marathon for his mate. Well, let's face it, like that takes a lot to do, and he's raised so much money. Like like today, we went back into training today. I mean, it was pretty low key, but like that, he was just, nothing happened. He just walked in, did his job and spoke to us in what he needed to say to us. But like, the thing that he'd done, the outside noise, he just left it there. And, it speaks volume for a person like himself. And like I said this earlier, I touched it earlier, like I was saying, when you see guys like that running and training and doing stuff like that, it actually motivates, the team, the boys. Like I know individuals speaking about it today. We're like, we've got no excuse. Like, if these guys are working hard, like what have we got? You know what I mean? We do this for a living. So it kind of drives that level as well, not only as a defense coach, but, what he does as well by his actions. And I guess, from last year, as you guys, been following us for a while, since I've arrived, we've probably, gone through a reef phase, I guess, or a clean out. And you're seeing that slowly starting to change. And I think, people are talking about this season, talking about, we're 8-0 or 9-0, whatever it is. But I think what people keep forgetting is it's the same squad that were getting 40 put on us, 50 put on us. They were young guys now, but, fast forward 18 months and it's the same team, but just a bit more experience and, new guys coming in. So I know this sounds cliche, and you've probably heard us say it all the time, but the journey, like, we're starting to reap some rewards. And with guys like Kev, who joined the coaching staff, it's actually just like, boom, another level. He's obviously had Steve, you had Aled there, and then now you bring in Kev and his experience. It's just like, you run through a brick wall for him, if that makes sense. And I speak that highly of Kev.
He's just phenomenal. And I think the thing is, for us, Nemani, we mentioned it in the live show, is, you've got two ex-Leicester legends here, and we're just so happy to see Leicester on top. I mean, one Leicester legend and Goodey. We're just happy to see.
You played 18, James. Did you play for the first team? I can't remember.
Yeah, I played a handful of games, but it was the foundations. We speak about that. But I think, the big thing is, Nemani, on this podcast, we spoke about Leicester, and you mentioned it there. They're a clean out, if that's the right word. And I think rugby, especially English Premiership rugby, is significantly better when you have a Leicester team that is competing like you guys. It's phenomenal.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like, I remember when I first came, and this is what I was in Montpellier, and I'd signed for Leicester, and Steve was starting. And I remember when we first came, people like our own supporters were kind of like, "Why you've got this?" I think Johnny May left, and I'll set the record straight. I was getting pounded. Like, I had people messaging me going, "He's a has-been. He's old. What's he doing? What's his?" And you sort of question yourself as well. You're like, geez, because Leicester is a very big club in Europe, right? They've been around for a long time.
Yeah. And
I think that's a good thing about Steve, is that he bought these sort of guys. And like, for me, when I'm on the rugby, I just want to win. So I don't really care about traditions or, as long as we play well, it's going to add to that legacy, so to speak. And so for me, like, it was kind of like when Steve brought players together, he said to us, listen, this team has got, a lot of history and a lot of stuff, but we need to make our own history, if that makes sense, by adding to it. And I think that's what sort of the mindset of some of the new guys that came in was like, right, we start our journey and, harping, like I said, I'm harping on again, but, the biggest thing was trying to prove our fans wrong as well, because I think they were probably used to, the losing. I think there was 3-4 years or a period there where they were struggling a little bit.
Yeah.
And, when I'm not saying like, Steve come in, brought guys in and like cleaned out a lot of guys. There were guys there that, went pretty quickly, and there was guys that left. So like I said, you're seeing the effects of it. And the scary thing about it, guys, is that these guys are only like 22, 23, some of them, some of them, we had like our last week of training, we had 18-year-olds coming in. So that, the scary thing about it is like, it's, these guys are not even at their, peak. Or Freddie Stewart, who's what, 21, maybe 22. He's the next big thing in England rugby. So, it's going to be, it's exciting time for the club, especially for the young guys. But, hopefully we can, keep carrying and, worry about this season first. But yeah.
Stuff. You mentioned Freddie Stewart then, someone that obviously you've played a hell of a lot with over the last sort of 18 months, him at fullback, you on the wing. He's obviously relied on your experience and your knowledge a fair bit. Has he thanked you for helping him get on this pathway to England greatness now, and you getting some of the match fees for giving him the experience along the way?
No, well, unfortunately not. I saw him today and said hello to him, and it was kind of different, but I think he was just a bit nervous. I don't know, I think he was a bit nervous coming in, like as if, I gave him a bit of stick, as you do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I did tell him today that needs to up his fashion sense. He's I don't know what it is.
Baggy jeans.
Yeah, like
why? What do you mean? What's he wearing?
Or
not wearing?
No, it's not. It's just uncoordinated. I mean, maybe I'm old school. I'm jeans, polo shirt, and RMs. But yeah,
RMs.
RM with the boots.
Boots, James. That's booting.
But what's an RM? What does RM mean?
No, like RM Williams. Sorry, it's a brand.
It's a brand, James.
Boots I've got, James.
Mate, Nemzi looks way better than you, Andy Rowe. So yeah, just follow Nemzi.
But yeah, no, Freddie. He's honestly, to be fair, like to see him back in, you can almost see a change in Freddie, and that's what's exciting. So, hopefully, if I'm playing this week, he'll and obviously he's playing, he can help me out in the back of those high balls.
Nemani, you talk about the impact Steve Borthwick's made at Leicester. Another coach that's made a big impact, Vern Cotter at Fiji. doing a hell of a job there. Does he talk about Jim much? I know you're close with him. Jim talks about him a lot. Is it reciprocated?
Yeah, no, we did have a conversation. I said this on Thursday, and because I kind of read up on, I've been watching the podcast, and obviously Jim talks highly. Anyway, so me and Vern, I'd like to think we have a pretty good relationship. Trent, I just literally, we spoke about Jim for a bit, and he goes, something along the lines, if you want to be a good person or you want to be a good rugby player, don't be like Jim. And so conversation stopped. So I walked away from it and I was thinking, he must have done something wrong, old Jim.
Yeah, I didn't want to twiddle a rabbit upside down, and I'm a vegan. I'm not, but I'll just tell him I am. He doesn't know that. He doesn't know that I'm a vegan, but he's doing good things with Fiji. Let's talk to us about Fiji then. There's obviously big news that's come out in the last week around this Regulation 8 or whatever it's called, around residency and eligibility to play for a second team again. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Nemani? I mean, I know a little bit about the information, but how it might benefit, your Samoas, Tongas and Fijis.
Yeah. No, I think, like at the start, it was probably, there's a lot of, debate, but now that the rule's in, I think, moving forward, it's going to benefit, the tier 2 nations. Obviously Samoa and Tonga is going to benefit hugely from it because, they've got, All Blacks and guys playing in Australia. Fiji, we probably a little bit depending because, we're not short of wingers, we're not short of centers and back rows, so, in terms of the 3 unions, I really think Fiji's probably, without being biased, I think Fiji's in a good place. We've got the Super Rugby, we've got a good pathway and whatnot. But, from what I've been reading up on it and seeing, you see on Twitter how people are making up teams and stuff. And, the guys that are eligible for Fiji are all outside backs, most of them anyway. So it's pretty, as like I said, Fiji produce, our biggest export of anything in Fiji is wingers and outside centers. So, but I think, there's always going to be consequences with this. I said to you guys on Thursday, I think it's probably going to be hard for director of rugby's, like coaches, presidents of clubs over here in Europe, because, when you do sign those sort of All Blacks and Wallabies in the past, you're going to get them for the whole season, if that makes sense. Now, now that the rules change, what's going to happen? Do you get, do their values drop? Stuff like, because you're going to probably lose them for, is it 3-4 months of the year? So stuff like that, there's always consequence to everything. And, thankfully I'm not a president or a DOR, but I think they're going to have headaches when it comes to signing, your big name Polynesians players who do play for the All Blacks at the moment or Wallabies, because now, you can probably leave those countries a bit earlier and knowing that you can still play international rugby. So, like I said, it's going to be tough for those guys, good for the players. But, like I said, the question is, does your value as a player drop or? All
right, Nemani, well, thank you so much for coming on the show, mate. And best of luck with the rest of the season with the Tigers.
Cheers, boys. Thanks for having me. We'll catch up soon.
Cheers, Nemzi. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, MC.
Thanks, buddy. Top
bloke.
Lad. Yeah, absolute top bloke. Yeah, he had a proper ding dong on Wednesday. He was that pissed, I think, on Wednesday night. He keeps mentioning Thursday. It was Wednesday, Nemzi. And we had it went into Thursday, didn't it? Let's be honest. It went deep into Thursday as well. But yeah, what a bloke. You listen to the way he speaks. Obviously, he's talking about Kevin Sinfield there and everything that these guys have been doing around. He's dead right, isn't he? If your coach is doing that and you can't get yourself up for a cold Monday morning session at Leicester, you're in the wrong job, aren't you?
What do you make of the eligibility laws about some clubs maybe exploiting them a little bit?
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, I suppose the big thing, and it's something that it would have never happened to Jim myself, but I suppose it did happen to me a little bit at Brive. I signed for Brive and there was no chance I was playing for England again. At the time, and then you get picked for England. They're like, well, we didn't think you'd ever get picked again, but now you've got to be away for big chunks of the season, and it did cause a bit of animosity. And then, for some guys, they're obviously signing. I suppose it happens more over in France, where he mentions about presidents asking players, saying, "Well, we'll give you a bit more to not play international rugby." And you have heard these rumours and stories before, haven't you? And it's tough I've got no doubt that players, you look at Peartown. Peartown's value to Bristol has been phenomenal, hasn't it? He's paid argument's sake, he's paid £1 million a year, but he's been a phenomenal player for them. If he was playing for Tonga all that time, I guarantee you now he wouldn't be on £1 million a year because they wouldn't have him anywhere. Semi Randrandra, yeah.
Got injured.
Yeah. And that's the risk as well, isn't it? You do see a lot of players come back from international duty and it's by chance or it's by overplaying, stress on the body, but they do pick up injuries because it's at the very top level. You're playing against the best of the best, the most physical boys, the fastest boys, the most powerful boys. You're going to get more injuries, and it's something that clubs have to look at now. And maybe there will be less opportunities for, Tongans and Fijians and Samoans or ex-All Blacks, ex-Wallabies or whatever to come over to the Northern Hemisphere where they do cash in a bit and they put it in. Look at John Afoa still going. I know he's injured at the minute, but he's still cracking, big game after big game involved, and he's about 46 now. But there are players that give a lot of value, and there are other players that don't. And this is something now where actually the clubs are going to get less value. So does it make them less attractive and less valuable? Well, maybe their market value drops a bit as well.
Well, let's turn our attention now to the URC, and it's been a tough week for a few teams after travel restrictions were imposed as a result of the new Omicron variant of COVID, and Scarlets have made it back. They're isolating in Northern Ireland, but Cardiff and Munster are isolating in South Africa, and a couple of people have even tested positive, haven't they, guys?
My goodness me. I mean, what do you do? What do you say? Big thing and the big issue around the URC was going to be this, wasn't it? The travel.
Yeah, it's really tough. I mean, we know Scarlets have come back and they're now isolating the hotel in Belfast. They've actually asked the Welsh government to say if there's any way of getting them back to Wales to be able to isolate there because of the issues around the health and safety of their players and preparing for a game that they're going to have in a couple of days after their isolation finishes. There's so many logistics that need sorted out. Munster have just been given clearance to come back. I think they'll be back tomorrow. So obviously Tuesday they'll be looking at heading back if their PCR testing is great. I know everyone's okay, but the two guys I think that have been tested positive from Munster, I think are going to have to stay out. Cardiff, the same thing. They're still waiting for clearance to come back. So it's awful, really tough. The players I remember seeing some of the pictures last week. Boys were so happy being out in South Africa, a bit of sunshine, training in the sun, shorts, t-shirts. You leave in the UK and it's 1 degree or -2 or wherever you live, it's bloody cold. And it was a nice little pick-me-up for them, wasn't it? So, and then unfortunately you get stuck in the whole travel issue, and you can't think of anything worse than 10 days in a government hotel self-isolating because you just gone and tried to play a rugby game as part of your job. So it's brutal. You feel for the players. First and foremost, you hope everyone that tested positive is okay. And secondly, you just want them to get back as quickly as possible. And the knock-on effect of not only the URC games that are being cancelled, and I know the URC are changing some games so the South African teams are playing against each other this weekend, but there's no way Munster or Scarlets can play this weekend coming. Then there's Europe the next 2 weeks after that. Munster are playing Wasps away in one game, and the knock-on effect of that, trying to cram it into the season if those games have to be cancelled as well. And you've got to do what's right by the players.
Out of all the leagues, this is the one, isn't it? Top 14, all in France. Premiership, all in England. Europe's going to be the big one in terms of what happens in terms of travel to France, this situation that Goodey mentioned. But the URC in general, as we now go into the second part of it, because they've had a 5-week break, is how's it going to look? Now, I ain't got a crystal ball. If I did, it'd be big. It'd probably be very hairy. But it's one of them where it's a who knows again. But what I do know is that there were some quality games at the weekend. I mean, where do you start? Let's start with my game. Edinburgh, who I thought were going to struggle against the Dragons, because Luke Narroway convinced me, captain the Filthy 15, that they were fully on. Edinburgh, and talk about a brand of ruggers, looked, I'm going to say it, they looked sensational. And they had a bonus point win down at Rodney Parade. Andrew, I don't know if you've played there. Lovely spot. Great Chinese out the front. I don't know if you've been there.
I have played there. Mate, I've played there and I've been to both the Chinese and the chip shop, no doubt.
So, in that sense, it's a great place to go and play, but nonetheless, a tough place. So, Edinburgh had a good win. Was lucky enough to commentate on that with Shane Williams. But the headline ones are Ulster.
What a win.
Leinster. What a win. they've been under a bit of pressure, Ulster, in terms of their performances. And I think you look at it and you look at the way that Leinster have been the past 4 or 5 seasons in the URC, what was the Pro 14. They looked unbeatable. Tell the physicality of that from Ulster. Oh, my goodness me. Nick Timoney at number 8, who's in the Ireland squad as well. Phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal in terms of physicality. James Hume as well in the centre, big listener of the podcast apparently, loves it.
Yeah, he was man of the match, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was man of the match or player of the match, whoever you're talking to. Yeah,
the old intercepts at the end.
There you go, you're enjoying the URC.
Yeah, love the URC, mate, love the URC.
And McCluskey as well, a big shout out to him. And that's the big thing, is like how these Irish teams compare to everyone else. And we always speak about Leinster, we always speak about Ulster and Munster. Connor.
Mate, they absolutely hosed the Ospreys.
In a hurricane.
Mate, imagine how windy that was. I've played there when people say it's a good day and it's 90-mile-an-hour winds. Imagine with a storm there as well, a hurricane, the lot. Absolutely horrific. I heard one of the kicks he's put the kick up and it's gone about 15 metres behind him.
It has. That was exactly right. So
imagine you catching kickoffs in that. Like, can you imagine you trying to catch kickoffs in that?
No, because then they're the best ones because you've got an excuse. But yeah, the URC, quality rugby at the weekend. So it was a pleasure to be a part of. Big shout out to Edinburgh, going down to Dragons. Huge shout out to Ulster, and fair play to Connor, who have got a friend in me, in Andy Friend at the helm, to play that kind of rugby in them conditions against the Ospreys. Phenomenal.
Should we have a look at the rumours? Anything floating around at the moment for the Rumour Mill?
There's a few.
Is there?
Is there any as big as the Finn or not? Go on then.
Well, your Finn one is massive. And I was going to say Andre Pollard to Leicester is what I've heard. But you've heard Finn, which is even bigger potentially than Andre Pollard.
Who would you prefer as a Leicester legend to another Leicester legend? Who do you think would be best suited? Shall I give my opinion? I rate Andre Pollard. I don't think he's as good as his CV and the price tag on it probably says. And that is a big statement. I get it. I absolutely get it. It's a big statement. And it's only an IMO. And I think
he's a World Cup winner, mate.
But it's his CV. But what's his price tag? 750.
Yeah, possibly.
So would have Finn
Russell, I mean, it's a tough one, isn't it? Finn
No,
Russell,
I don't think it is. I don't think it is a tough one. Do you?
I do actually, because you've got 2 very different types of players. One probably suits a Steve Borthwick-minded team. And can you imagine Steve Borthwick trying to say to Finn, mate, no look passes, just, well, I suppose if you're signing Finn, you're signing Finn for, you know what you're getting. Even though Racing got their pants absolutely pulled down by Bordeaux at home at the weekend, which I'll come on to later. But yeah, I don't know. I think Andre Pollard suits Leicester more than Finn Russell.
Any other big rumours floating around?
Yeah, talking about Leicester, I can't see it. I can't say salary cap, but I can't see it. I've heard Ellis Genge, there's a sniff of him going to Saracens. No chance, surely not. Really?
Wow. It all depends on the revolving door that is the Vunipolas. I'm unsure whether Mako and Billy will stay.
Do you know what I heard? I heard Saracens offered them less than they're on now. Which, it may be fair, maybe true, maybe false, but that's only going to entice Billy and Mako to look for bigger money elsewhere, isn't it?
And there's always the chat with Billy and Mako that they were going to go to France at some point. Clement was the big one that was always spoken about. Bordeaux's in the mix now. Do they go as a duo? Do they go as a pair? We know that their dad has a big influence on the decisions without speaking for them. I might be completely wrong, but that's what I've heard. I'll be honest with you. I would not be surprised to see Mako and Billy Vunipola leave Saracens. I wouldn't. So I could see it happening. You look at the age profile, you look at the development of Saracens in terms of what they want to do. I would do everything personally to try and keep Mako and Billy, but what does everything mean in terms of money? And we know the issues that Saracens have had. Do they want to stay, or do they want to go to France and get paid 1 point whatever million for the both of them, or each, whatever the value at? And they'd suit France as well. So in that point comes, well, how do you fill that void? Baby Rhino.
And Jim, you've got a shout out to finish off with, don't you?
Yeah, I've got a big shout out to Spartans RFC. This is Sparta in Gloucester. They're on the lookout for new players. Since returning after COVID, they've been struggling for numbers, and they've seen the likes of Phil Greening, Brian Lamb, Dan Norton all come through their ranks. So if you're in the area, get involved and get in touch with them. And imagine that. Imagine being able to do this every game. This is Sparta. Maybe I'll go be captain.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Goodey. Thanks, producer Tristan. And thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube as well. Make sure you've subscribed on Spotify.
Rugby Spod.
Spotted pod.